Feel a lot of love in this room. There's a lot of hugs and handshakes going around, so please keep that going. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the 15th annual meeting of Suncoast Workforce. I'd just like to take a moment to thank our partners for their support of this event, Biz 941, the Bradenton Area Economic Development Corporation, Career Edge Funders Collaborative, Economic Development Corporation of Sarasota County, the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, Northport Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Northport Economic Development Corporation. To begin the program today, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would Guy Francois please come forward to sing the national anthem? Guy is a Suncoast Workforce team member, and he is also the CEO and Minister of Project Light in Palmetto.
Oh, say, can't you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Guy. That was beautiful. If Dale Vollrath would please come forward for the invocation. Dale is the current chairman of Suncoast Workforce Board of Directors, and he's also the president of TRC Staffing Services. Thank you, Dale.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day and for the privilege to gather together. And so many in this room spend so much of their time serving others, and it's great to get together and be able to fellowship and to share what's going on. We thank you, Lord, for the leadership of our community. We thank you for the Suncoast Workforce and all the partners that work together to make these two counties a better place to live, and the way they unselfishly become involved. We're so grateful for that. Lord, we don't know exactly who's been praying for rain, but you certainly have heard their prayers. And we thank you for that. But we also thank you for the sun that just makes this day so bright and wonderful. And Father, in the midst of all this, we know that there are companies that are still struggling and haven't been able to hire or have a difficult time retaining employees. We pray for them. We still pray for those folks that are still looking for work, or either underemployed or don't have a place to go in the morning to work, and we just pray that you'll provide for them. So we pray for the benefit of that, God, that they'll touch their hearts and encourage them. We pray also for the many people who lost homes. We read that Florida still has the most foreclosures in each state, and this area certainly has its more than its share. We pray for these families that are hurting and pain is involved. So, Lord, we do need your help, and we look to you for that. We thank you again for the chance to be together. We thank you for the food and for all that you give us. We pray in his name. Amen.
Many of the members of the Suncoast Workforce Executive Committee here present with us today. Please stand and be recognized and remain standing. Members of the Suncoast Workforce Executive Committee. Would the remaining members of the Suncoast Workforce Board of Directors please stand and be recognized? Thank you for your dedication and service to this board to help us accomplish our goals and missions. You may be seated. The Suncoast Workforce Board is a 34-member group comprised of business leaders, educational and economic development representatives, community-based organizations, state agencies, labor unions, and elected officials. Board members bring focus and expertise to the resolution of critical workforce issues for Manatee and Sarasota counties. Their hard work and talent guide our efforts as we work together to find solutions to critical workforce challenges in our region. Our partnerships, however, are what make us successful. The economic development organizations, chambers of commerce, human services agencies, and civic organizations spend tremendous effort on workforce development. Through these partnerships, we are able to achieve so much more. Now, it's my honor to introduce those local elected officials who are spending time with us today. Please rise as I call your name. Manatee County School Board member, Barbara Harvey. Manatee County School Board member, Karen Carpenter. Sarasota County Commissioner, Carolyn Mason. Sarasota County School Board, Frank Kovac. Is there anyone I may have missed or whose name I didn't call? I want to thank you for your support. And there's also a special person that I'd like to recognize who has served on the Suncoast Workforce Board as well as the Workforce Florida Board. If Alex Mosley would please stand and be recognized. Thank you, Alex. Would Sarasota County Commissioner Carolyn Mason please come forward? Commissioner Mason was the 2012 recipient of the Suncoast Workforce Leadership Award. She was recognized for her passion for helping victims of domestic violence. She chaired the Suncoast Workforce Empowerment Committee that helped create awareness of domestic violence in our two-county region. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Adam. 13 years ago, Suncoast Workforce began a tradition of recognizing community leaders who gave continuous support to our region as we strive to satisfy the needs of businesses, their workers, and the residents in this community. I missed my cue. It is with great pleasure to announce the newest recipient of the Suncoast Workforce Leadership Award. This individual has contributed significantly to workforce development and the betterment of this region. The nonprofit organization this person once led continues to be a strong regional collaborative today, helping low-skilled or low-wage workers in Manatee and Sarasota counties move into jobs that require higher skills and offer better pay by bringing together government, philanthropic organizations, and businesses to strengthen and accelerate workforce development. Training included Florida Ready to Work assessment and certification. It also included observation testing, which evaluates workers as they function while they are performing their job. Their focus at the time was on the most critical industry sectors, healthcare and manufacturing. Since the launch of the organization in 2010, there were several successes under this person's leadership that demonstrated that this individual is a champion of workforce development. Some examples include trained 1,456 individuals in the first year of opening its doors in 2010. Trained 195 PGT employees and another 85 went through observation testing. For Blake Hospital in Bradenton, 239 employees went through training, nearly all for trauma certification, and several also received surgical technician training. They were instrumental in convincing Air Products and Chemicals, which manufactures giant liquid gas conversion equipment near Port Manatee, that the region could supply the workforce the company needed. In 2012, the organization offered $100,000 worth of job training for health management employees as part of an incentive package by Sarasota County government that helped to preserve 148 jobs and promised to add 217 more jobs over the next few years. Also in 2012, it helped Tervis Tumbler to develop a career ladder development program for existing employees and created a job readiness program for new ones. They partnered with Manatee Community Federal Credit Union to offer a new affordable car purchase program for low-income workers in Manatee County. They also conducted a study of hiring needs of manufacturers in the region. Sarasota County Technical Institute utilized the study as a prime reason for why it needed to train high school graduates to become machinists. The curriculum was launched at SCTI in August of 2013. These are just a few examples of this organization's grants that were also utilized by Manatee Memorial Hospital, Life Care Center of Sarasota, Tidewell Hospice, and Barry Plastics, to name a few. In addition to their numerous accomplishments, Career Edge in Bradenton has been recognized at the national level by the National Fund for Workforce Solutions as the recipient of the 2013 Chairman's Award for Exemplary Collaboration for initiatives leading the advancement of low-wage workers and unemployed into family-supported jobs. It is my honor to present the 2013 Leadership Award to the former Executive Director of Career Edge Funders Collaborative, Maria Evie. Maria, please come forward and be recognized.
All right, I can't believe that this made me cry. And I'm honored to receive this award. And I'm honored because we did this together as a community. And the National Fund recognized us as one of the leading communities. And one of the things that I found a little funny was that, believe it or not, many communities do not incorporate workforce development and economic development. And when I started working at the EDC, that was something that has been done there forever. So to some other communities, it's new that economic development and workforce development works together. But thank you, because this was a joint venture of a lot of people coming together in this community to make this collaborative work. The name Workforce Collaborative is the reason that we accomplished this. We couldn't have done this by ourselves. When I sit back and I hear all the things that we were able to accomplish, it's something that you're very proud of. And I think the last thing that I was able to leave was the machining program that for 7 years, I was wanting that we had that in our community. It was a need. So being able to see that we worked together and we really made things happen, we have to be proud here in Sarasota and Manatee counties because we really care about workforce and we really care about our employers out there, and we should all be proud to be able to be recognized. And thank you very much, and I'm honored.
Maria, congratulations from all of us. You certainly deserve this award, and we appreciate everything you've done for the community. Now, would Ted Ehrlichman, Chief Operating Officer with Suncoast Workforce, please come forward to introduce our special guest, Andrea Syverson.
Thank you, Adam. As you can see, I've carried up the official introduction, but those of you who know me, and I know most of you in this room, know that I have to have a little bit of a preamble to this, and so you have to bear with me when I have this little preamble. One of the reasons I enjoy getting up and going to work every day, and I do enjoy getting up and going to work every day, I always have, and I think if you're like me, it's because of the relationships. It's the people you work with that make the difference every single day. You get support, mutual support. You get hopefully you benefit from them, they benefit from you. Well, our speaker today, it's kind of interesting because she and I worked together a few years back in Colorado Springs, and we worked for a greeting card company, a little one, that was out to bury Hallmark. So look out, Hallmark. I mean, they're still scared, I think, because we were there. And Andrea and I worked together just not too many years, but one of the greatest privileges is to have somebody that I worked with and worked with pretty closely now back in our lives, applying all those things we learned and taking all that stuff we did and putting it into a brand new industry. And I think you're in for a treat, so you need to kind of buckle up. We're going to talk about branding, and we're going to talk about a culture, a community culture, and Maria gave me a great segue into that, to a community opportunity, community effort. Let me just tell you about Andrea. She's the founder and president of IER Partners. And Andrea has helped strengthen brands of all sizes and has brought savvy best business practices for creating customers for life. And I think we all agree that's what we're looking at. Combining her passion of adventurous listening and working across diverse industries, her outsider, insider creative branding and merchandising have been valued by a number of companies. And her, by the way, the bio is in the program, and the list of companies really speaks well to Andrea and what she's been able to do at companies like Ben & Jerry's, Celestial Seasonings, Chef's Catalog, Boston Proper, Spanx, and Suncoast Workforce now. So I'm going to introduce Andrea. She's going to talk to us about a beach ball culture and many other things. So enjoy.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your brand. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Mary Helen. This is a topic I am passionate about. I love helping companies tell their brand story, live their brand story, and be proud of their brand story. Before we get started, I just want to thank again all of our partners. We so appreciate you being here and being part of the Suncoast Workforce brand. Before we get started, I know you're eating, but in case you need to log off, right now would be a fabulous time, just so you can kick back and really be totally present. I saw this little cartoon in the New Yorker, and I thought it fit our talk today. Certainly, I am tickled that our sun came out and that we could have an indoorsy beach party. But all kidding aside, what we're really going to do today is stop and think. It's something that doesn't happen often enough in our busy work lives. And we're going to stop and think not just about the Suncoast Workforce brand, which we'll do shortly, but I'd like you to stop and think about your brand as I share examples from best practices of other brands, and to sort of absorb this information through your own lens and see if there aren't some takeaways for you after you leave our beach party. So I have had the honor of working with lots of different clients over the last 15 years. I absolutely love helping companies get closer to their customers, to helping them tell their brand stories in ways that are truly relevant for customers' needs. And so today what we're going to talk through is a rather rapid-fire agenda. We're going to talk about why having an audacious, purpose-driven branding culture is important, why a beach ball culture, which we'll explain shortly, matters, why adventurous listening is the only way to go, how to leverage our brand touchpoints, how to invite brand ambassadors into our story, and then we're going to do a bit of a short chapter on Suncoast Workforce just to tell you more of their brand story, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. Audacious branding matters because we live in a culture that's constantly bombarding us with lots and lots of messages. And so we're getting so much information that it's so hard to really concentrate on any one thing that crosses our websites, our phones, our eyeballs in any one way. So brands really have to be bolder than ever. We also have a problem with just doing business as usual because there is no usual anymore. If you think about your own life and how things may have changed in your last 12, 24, 36 months, you'll realize that companies, if they're not keeping up with you, that they have lost a chance to connect, a chance to do business with you. Your life is changing quickly, and if companies aren't changing quickly, then they're going to be left behind. So we're not about business as usual, ever. So just because I believe some in the audience don't live in a branding world every day, I thought I would just do a quick Branding 101, a little bit of branding vocabulary. As you know, brands, just that concept, started ages ago. This is a true little book from a ranch in Colorado, where I'm from. And brands really started with ranchers branding their cattle, so my cows didn't mess with your cows, and if they did, we could separate them. So branding was really a mark of distinction. Branding today is still a mark of distinction, but to the 10th power. We've really elevated it to a bigger experiential situation. Here's a perfect example. I don't know if we have any former or Texans in the audience, but King Ranch in Texas, one of the biggest ranches in the world, actually, started with their logo, the running W, the little snake. That now is such a, started with typical cows and cattle, and they still have all that, but it's also moved into a beautiful ranch and leather goods and a whole much bigger experience. So branding, the actual look and feel of that is still happening, but it's been infused in a lot of other ways. Seth Godin tells a fun story, and I'll share many of my mentors with you in this presentation just to bring you into some of the ways I think. But Seth Godin is a marketer, very smart marketer, and he was on a vacation with his family. I believe he's a New Yorker, and he was tooling around Vermont, and they were, him and his kids and wife were driving through the beautiful countryside of Vermont, and the kids were looking at all the cows, and they don't see many cows in New York City, so the kids were oohing and eyeing, and then after many, many miles of the cows, it was no longer really very interesting. And he got to thinking, wow, I wonder if we were driving and one day there was a purple cow out there. Wouldn't that be really remarkable? And so he just started his thinking about the idea of purple cow. And he actually then wrote a book called Purple Cow and marketed it in a milk carton, which is quite clever. And it's his way of talking about being remarkable, that brands have to really stand out. If your brand is a brown cow that people see everywhere and has no real mark of distinction, you're never going to get people talking about your particular brand or product. So how can you, in today's day and age, be even more remarkable? Tom Peters has said that branding is the only way to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And that is so true. It's one of the objectives of branding is to be distinctive and remarkable. Lucas Conley has said, brands offer us mental shortcuts. I love that idea. Helping us cut through the clutter of everything we buy and enabling us to communicate certain concepts quickly and easily. So that when you walk down a grocery store aisle, You don't have to think so much. Do I want Brawny or Bounty Towels? Do I want Crest or Brand X? Brands help us quickly register a particular type of product and helps us cut through all the other different options that are out there. Brands, in addition to helping us, the whole art of branding really helps businesses, as you well know. This was recently in the Wall Street Journal. 2 different branding agencies tried to put a valuation on what brands are worth. And there was some big debate on the levels, but if you see Disney and Nike and Apple, and Coke and Toyota, brands that are really part of our lives, you see huge numbers, 29 billion, 16 billion, 75 billion. This is what the brand name, the brand experience, the equity that it's giving that particular company. So instead of just buying brown soda water, brown sugar water, you're buying a Coke. And the difference between a brown sugar water, kind of generic, and Coke, and all that Coke offers, is this brand equity. And so companies invest so much into creating a brand experience that's memorable, that really lifts their brand up and above all the other options. Ages ago, Kevin Lane Keller, he's a professor of marketing, one of the best in the world actually, wrote an article in the Harvard Business Review, and I've used this for many, many years, and he looked at some of the best brands out there, and he put a report card together. And he said, from all of his research, the best brands do these 10 things. They do things like deliver benefits that customers truly desire. They stay relevant. They have a really good perception of what their customers perceive as value when it comes to pricing. They're properly positioned. They're consistent. Their portfolio and hierarchy, if it's more than one brand, makes sense. They have a full repertoire of activities. The managers, everybody in leadership understands the brand. The brand is given proper support, and over time they monitor all the various sources of brand equity. I usually start my work when I'm working with companies by giving them this list, and I ask them to self-evaluate. I say, on this list of 10 things, what grade would you give your brand? Where do you see yourselves? Maybe you get an A in one of these, but a C- in consistency. Or you're doing a full repertoire of activities, but they're not consistent. And so we usually start with looking at ourselves, looking at this list and saying, where do we fall short? What do we need to shore up? And it's a really good list to sort of keep top of mind as you're building brand, as you're building marketing communications, as you're putting your brand story in front of your customers. Is it something they care about? And using this as a checklist. I've developed an approach over the last 15 years really working with companies in a way that reminded me of going on a walkabout in Australia. And the idea that you look up and out, and you don't just look immediately, even within your own industry, or to your competitor to the right or your competitor to the left, but a much broader scope that really starts with the heart of the customer. What is it that she or he is all about? What do they need? What are their desires? What are their dreams? Brands that study all of this, that discern it, that show compassion for their customers, they do all that hard work first, and then the brand story becomes something that's much more engaging with their customers. So I found that a lot of my work with companies is really simple. I'm trying to give them a permission slip to look up and out, to not just stay in their industry. There's so many great things to learn outside of all sorts of industries that can be brought into your industry, but permission to sort of unleash your thinking. Nothing limits achievement like small thinking. Nothing equals possibilities like unleashed thinking. So sometimes we have to unleash our thinking. And I do that by looking at all sorts of examples from best practices all across industries. When I was working with a Christian publisher, we looked at companies as varied as Caribou Coffee to LL Bean to Title IX to Patagonia. For this presentation, I'm going to show you examples from Starbucks and Duluth Trading and Apple and Amazon. And so we just need to continually unleash our own thinking to look up and out more. We really just want to go to school on some of the best practices that other industries are doing and see how they can apply to our worlds. That approach is very hands-on, very experiential. I write about it in a book called Brand About, and there's lots of activities that I have used and I know work, and we just did some with Suncoast not too long ago. And then that book is on branding, and this one is on products and all sorts of innovative thinking. And I'd like to, at the end of the talk, just give away a couple of these books. So Tracy's going to just pass a little gift bag around, and so if you have a card and just tuck it in there, by the time we're done, I'll pull it out and we can see who gets their very own book. So before we get started, one of the first things we have to do when it comes to branding is to bring our team together. Branding is not a logo, and B, branding is not one person's job. Branding is really the work of the entire organization. And so the idea of putting together a beach ball culture is very important, and I'll explain that in just a second. Every brand, every company, really every person has only so much energy. You wake up every day and you have a pie of energy. And how is that pie going to be divided? Brands are exactly the same way. How will that energy, your time, your dollars, your passion, be divided? The best brands, the brands that are really ringing true for customers, consolidate all that energy into one direction. It isn't scattered. They're not being pulled in a million directions. They're quite focused, and everybody is working in the same direction. So sometimes we have to look at our brand energy and see what's happening. Sometimes our brand energy is divided within our own four walls. We set up silos. Silos are great on a farm, but they're devastating to brands. And so I loved the idea that I'm borrowing from Susan Scott about beach balls, and that's why they're here today. It wasn't just a fun prop, it's actually important to our work. And Susan Scott, in her book Fierce Conversations, talks about companies being like beach balls. That all day long, we come into a company and we may live in a different stripe. Some of us live in an accounting stripe. Some of us live in a marketing stripe. Some of us live in a manufacturing stripe. Some of us live in a HR stripe. And all day long, we come in and we have that lens in which we see everything. So accountants are thinking money and dollars, and manufacturers are thinking about their measures, and everybody has their own little piece of the stripe. And we need specialists, and that's really important. But when it comes to branding, customers really see brands and companies holistically. They see it as a whole beach ball. So for example, if for this meeting we wanted to get some beach totes from LL Bean, and we call LL Bean, or we go online, and we end up, which is normally a fabulous company, but we end up finding out that their beach totes are out of stock. We don't get off the phone and say to our colleague, wow, that inventory planning department at LL Bean really doesn't have their act together. We say, wow, LL Bean let me down. And I just think that's a really great example to remind us that while we live in various stripes, as a company, we have to come together and have lots more beach ball kinds of meetings, lots more collaboration, lots more cross-departmental conversations, what Susan Scott calls fierce conversations. Some of you are maybe familiar with crucial conversations. There's a couple of different philosophies out there. I love how she talks about bringing your whole self to business conversations, having robust conversations, real conversations, bring all of your energy to those business relationships. And so we're using some of her work in our internal branding culture at Suncoast Workforce. We also are using some of the good work that Pat Lencioni is doing with a book called The Advantage, and talking about healthy internal organizations. We can come up with all the greatest ideas to build our brand externally, but if we're not connected internally, if we're not a healthy culture, if we're not working smart inside our four walls, our brand storytelling will be quite limited. So the first thing I like to do in working with companies on helping them tell their brand story more is to pull people together, to really have a grand brand collaboration. Now, these are just 3 departments I picked. Your world may be quite different. But if we're going to talk about brand, we have to get people together whose work faces the customer. So if it's marketing, if it's creative, if it's communication or merchandise or product, we've got to get all those people in a room together and talk about issues through the lens of a customer. Not through a silo, not through an individual stripe, but through the lens of the customer. We have to see things through their lens, not ours. In those meetings, we question absolutely everything. They're hard conversations sometimes, but they're really the only way to go. If we're not asking the hard questions internally, questioning everything, then it's giving our competitors a chance to ask those questions of their teams and perhaps outwit us. I came across an interesting term the other day. I've often heard sacred cows, and those are the kinds of things we question. But someone used the term old couches, and I really liked that idea. It's like you have this old sofa at home, and you keep moving it to different parts, and it finally ends up in the basement, and you should have just gotten rid of it years ago, but you just couldn't part with it for some reason, and you don't even know the reason anymore. So sometimes we have to question our sacred cows, our old couches, and find out, are they still relevant? Sometimes in those meetings we end up upside down a bit, but that's okay. That's okay. That's what beach ball conversations, they're healthy and they're important. Beach ball conversations also enable us to unleash bigger thinking. So then we really have a sort of a much bigger beach umbrella that we are able to look up and out and really see our customer's lens from a bigger perspective. So we gather everyone together, and we do what I like to call some adventurous listening. Not the kind of listening that you can just check off your list, like, anybody talk to a customer? Yeah, no. Not that kind of listening, but adventurous listening, kind of like Outward Bound, if you're familiar with that program. Adventurous listening, expecting to learn things from our customers that we can use to make our brand, our products, more relevant to their lives. So we go to school again on our customers, and we realize that this is the most important work we do all day, because the customer is really our boss. We turn the organization chart upside down, and with all due respect to all the board members here, we say, hey, the president isn't our boss, the CEO, the CFO, the board isn't our boss, the customer is our boss. Without the customer, we're lost. We don't have a business. So we really want to have the whole organization working towards and for our customers. Lots of times people use the term target audience or eyeballs or wallets, and I just think that sounds so demographic and psychographic and doesn't really give me a feel of who we're working for. So I like to think about customers as friends. And if you just now think of your best friend, whether it's your mate or just whomever that is, and if you can just imagine that person, and then imagine all the things you know about that person. You know what makes them tick. You know the way they like to spend their time. You know what some of their favorite things are to do or say. That's when companies can start thinking about their customers as friends and trying to learn all they can about them so they can really get them. It's those companies that will actually know and learn enough that will set their brand apart. I love what Jeff Bezos just recently said in an interview. He said, if you're customer focused, you're always waking up wondering, how can we make our customers say wow? We want to impress our customers. We want them to say wow. That kind of divine discontent comes from observing customers and noticing things that can always be better. So divine discontent can lead to wow. In that same interview, he said, we really have a cocktail. He goes, our Amazon cocktail is customer centricity, long-term thinking, and focus on invention. Love that. So before we ask if our customers are loyal to us, I think the most important question is really, are we loyal to our customers? And how do we do that? Again, Jeff says, our energy at Amazon comes from the desire to impress customers rather than the zeal to best competitors. So I just ask you, what are you doing or what have you done lately to impress your customers? How have you gotten to know them as friends? What kind of strategies can you put together to learn more about your customers? Another branding word and term that we use a lot is touch points. And touch point sounds just like it means just what as it sounds, which is where your brand comes up against your customer. Where does your customer experience all aspects of your brand? If your brand was a storybook, sort of like Alice in Wonderland, walking into your brand, what would he or she experience? How will that brand stand out in the competition? There's lots of toothpaste, there's lots of paper towels, there's lots of cars, there's lots of everything these days. How are you going to grab your customer's attention? What's your brand story? What's kind of between the covers of your brand? What's inside? From your brand themes to your categories to your products to how you describe them. Does all that sync up? Are you telling one main story with lots of different chapters, or is it quite discombobulated? That's also another good thing that comes from being a beach ball culture. You start learning more about how to pull all those individual departments and stories together. Ken Madden, who is a social media expert, said, every touch point becomes a potential brand building activity and a potential point of activation. The same is true, it can become a point of deactivation if it isn't done well. A sampling of brand touch points, and most businesses have these, and many of yours have other ones we could add to this. Everything from all of your social media to the competitive buzz that's out there about your brand, to the way you send emails, to all of your employees, to partners, alliances. All of these are ways your customers experience your brand. They're touch points. How often have you looked at these, prioritized them, said, wow, our top 3 touch points, they don't all look like they're coming from the same company. Our website's a little bit of a different look than this, than that. The power of touch points is when they're all humming together in the same direction. The woman that runs the White House Black Market, a division of Chico's, said, if your customer is your top priority, she needs to be your top priority in every touch point you have with her. That needs to seem very seamless. I believe that every touch point does one of 2 things. It either attracts your customers, it either enhances your brand, or it detracts from your brand. And so we have to look and see, how can we make the ones that are already enhancing the brand a bit better? And how can we fix those ones that might be detracting? That could be the way your phone is answered. That could be the way your customers are put on hold. That could be a messy front lobby or a dead plant in the lobby. They're little things, but they all add up to a brand experience. Your brand experience is really like two ends of a bookshelf, an A to a Z experience. We've got to look at all of those variables in between. Michael Eisner, former CEO of Disney, said that a brand is a living entity, and it's enriched or undermined cumulatively over time, the product of 1,000 small gestures. It's really lots and lots and lots of little things. And sometimes we are working on something big and we let go of the little things, when in fact, it's the little things that customers pay attention to. So just a quick glimpse into a touchpoint story. We'll take Starbucks, and as you know, Starbucks, one of the best well-run brands. They want to be the third place. So much like Cheers was the place people used to like to hang out, Starbucks wants to be the place that you go to after work or home. So your kind of top 3 places that you frequent. And if any of you stop at Starbucks on your way to work or home, you see the whole world is usually at Starbucks in some way or the other. Moms with kids, people working, entrepreneurs having meetings, students. It's really people's hangout after work and home. And so all of the various ways you can experience Starbucks, these are the touch points. So the way the barista greets you by name, the way that they wear aprons and have a whole different vocabulary to order a basic coffee, their packaging, the way that everyone walks around with a Starbucks billboard in their hand with their coffee mugs, the packaging in the grocery store, at point of purchase, whether it's a kiosk in the airport or a drive-through or a Starbucks tucked inside Target or Barnes & Noble, you're all having a similar experience of that brand. And then when they roll out new products, whether it's their instant coffee or ice cream or now bottled drinks or cold frappuccinos or cold green coffee beverages that taste like tea, their new refreshers, they're constantly thinking about how does all of this sync up together? How is this a part of our brand story? So companies like Starbucks are putting lots and lots of energy into those kinds of conversations. They very much don't want to be a Me Too company. Folgers never did this. Maxwell House never did this. They broke new ground, and they continue to break new ground. Scott Bedbury, the fellow that helped develop Starbucks and Nike, has said that a great brand is a story that's never completely told. I personally can't keep up with Starbucks, and I'm just trying to chronicle them. They are constantly adding and enhancing their brand in all sorts of ways. And so our brand stories are not stagnant. It's a continual, like Michael Eisner said, a living entity. We keep enriching it. So how do we enrich it? We enrich it in several ways. One is through our brand ambassadors. Brand ambassadors are those people within your 4 walls that love their jobs. They're your employees. They're the folks that make the brand come alive. Really, brands are all about people. You've got to have the right people. You've got to have a healthy, right environment. I love this picture of a day in the life of an Apple Genius Bar. And in my book, Brand About, I talk about the perfect desk for me, or I think that most brands should have, are these double-sided desks where we, the employees, sit on one side and customers sit on the other, where we could have real-time conversations about some of the decisions that we're trying to make about our brands. Instead of hypothetically thinking about what our customers might do or doing something through our lens or guessing, we could actually sit across the table and say, hey, what do you think about this? We're going to change this product. We're going to do this with our pricing. We're going to do this. What do you think? That's my perfect world. But I know business world is not perfect, but look what Apple did. They started this whole idea of genius bars, and it's genius. So we've got Apple internal brand ambassadors in blue shirts and customers on the other side. And I travel quite a bit, and it's called retailing for the fancy word, but go shopping to lots of different places to kind of see what trends are. Apple is the only store wherever I go that is packed, and Apple has it going on. This is such a great experience. It's live time learning about customers. They're solving problems, they're learning what's tripping people up. People are getting help, the blue shirts are learning more, they think they're geniuses, the geniuses think the customers are geniuses. It's a win-win-win. And so internal brand ambassadors, in this case it's the people in the blue. Well then all sorts of companies really help tell their story through their ambassadors. Here's a company up in New England, Gardner's Supply. And they have on their website trying to introduce you to their employees, but letting you know that they are mostly all gardeners. So when you call, you're talking to someone that absolutely loves their job. They love gardening, they could answer your questions, they are gardeners. So this idea of thinking about brand ambassadors, people within your four walls that love what they do, how can you tell your brand story more through your brand ambassadors? Then there's external brand ambassadors. These are really your customers that become raving fans. Raving fans. So back to this example, those customers leave that little exchange with their geniuses and they go in and tell their neighbors, hey, this genius fixed my computer. Hey, they made me feel smart. Hey, I can do this now on my Apple. They start telling those stories. They are advertising for you. They are storytelling for you. We've got to take our raving fans and have them do more storytelling for us. Companies are doing it left and right. This is from Patagonia. This is on their website. Our ambassadors are more than just athletes. So if this is your hobby, or you're an enthusiast in all of these different outdoorsy types of lifestyle, you could click on and find out what some of their favorite products are from the fly fishermen or the rock climbers or the skiers or the, you name it. Patagonia has it all. But they're trying to say, hey, talk to people using our products. They're our best advertisers. Duluth Trading is a great Midwest company. Really specializing in workwear. First, it started out workwear for men. Now they have all sorts of workwear for women as well. But they, on their website, you can come and read about people wearing their clothes, architects and gardeners, and they have a great sense of humor. And they're trying to say, don't just take our word for it. Listen to the people wearing the clothes. Listen to the people who love our brand. So, internal and external brand ambassadors. Tom Peters says that the race will go to those who listen to customers and respond most intently. So first we do that adventurous listening to find out about their needs, both expressed and unexpressed. We create these fabulous products for them, and then we say, hey, help us tell our story. Very important work. Brands that do it well insist upon being themselves. They're not copycats. They're not Me Too companies. They're all goldfish are swimming in one direction. The ones we pay attention to are the goldfish zagging in the other direction. So when you think about things that you want to do with your brand, be sure that they're original, that they're just not copycats of your competitors. But look up and out. Look all around you for new thinking and new ideas. What I'd like to do now is to show you a few glimpses into the day in the life of Suncoast workforce. And so we're going to show you how some of these branding principles have applied to Suncoast in these last few months and helped them create a powerful, purpose-driven brand. As you know, Florida has been ranked as one of the top workforces in the country, and Suncoast workforce is indeed one of those bright spots. We're going to chat about their purpose-drivenness, their beach ball culture, their touch points, and a few stories from their brand ambassadors. Suncoast Workforce is really in the people business. You know that better than I do. Every day they wake up and they think about 3 main verbs. Verbs are action orientations. They recruit, they train, and they retain talent. And they love what they do. These 3 verbs guide all the brand building activities, guides absolutely everything that goes on inside those offices. They do that because of a beach ball culture. All of those different departments and people cross functions. They talk to one another. They collaborate. They love what they do, and they focus on the people all the time. As a matter of fact, with those 3 verbs, if we take those 3 up just a little bit higher and we say, what's really happening when you recruit, train, and retain talent, Ted would say, we're really advancing. We're really in the advancement business, both for employers and for job seekers. So advance is a word that we use and helps Suncoast direct their brand activities. So let's take a look at some of the beach ball stripes at Suncoast. Inside their 4 walls, they have 5 stripes that really concentrate on customer segments. So veteran services, youth services, business services, specialized programs, and job seeker services. All customer focused. And of course, none of that could run swimmingly without admin help, making all of those programs happen. So inside the 4 walls, those are the beach ball stripes. Really, to keep it simple, you could just think of 2 big customer segments for Suncoast Workforce: employers, business clients, and job seekers. Both of those are also verb-driven. So for the business clients, all day long, Suncoast Workforce folks think about how to acquire them, how to develop them, and how to help retain the workers there. And then for the job seekers, again, it's more verbs. It's explore, develop, prepare. Ted likes to say that really Suncoast Workforce is a matchmaker between those 2 customer segments. It's really the e-harmony of work life. We're constantly helping one group connect with the other group. And it's brilliant, and people absolutely love what they do. This idea of working in a big tent, in a big beach umbrella, is part of what Suncoast does day in and day out with the other 23 regional workforce boards. As a matter of fact, if we use the beach ball analogy and think outside of their business, then we have these stripes. Suncoast Workforce connects with chambers, career edge, economic developers, nonprofits, businesses, and education. The breadth of their connections and the depth of their connections are amazing. It's a bigger potential than any one employer or job seeker could possibly do on their own. It's really part of advancing economic development in Florida. So we go back to those 3 verbs. Again, this is what we mean by purpose-driven. How do we live those verbs every day? For Suncoast Workforce, those verbs are all consuming, almost like our daily vitamins. This is what we do. When we think about brand touch points at Suncoast, we have all the same touch points as other businesses, but today I'd like to share several stories of brand ambassadors that are also ways our brand, Suncoast Workforce, connects with our customers. So you're going to see some examples of partnerships and alliances, some examples of business relationships, and some examples of employees. Here's one from one of our business partners.
Suncoast Workforce, Mark, as I'm sure you do as well. Yep. And obviously we know that workforce is top of mind with decision makers at companies that are looking to locate or expand in our region. And we've worked with Suncoast Workforce on a number of projects as I know you have as well. And so the one that comes to mind most readily is one that we're involved with right now, which is Air Products and Chemical. That's a company that is opening up a brand new manufacturing facility directly across the street from Port Manatee. And one of their issues was trying to find enough welders to build the heat exchangers that they'll be manufacturing there. So we contacted the Suncoast workforce, brought them in, and they have been just incredible in terms of helping them to recruit welders and other higher management positions. In fact, recently I looked at a report where it was stated that it saved them about $70,000 in recruiting expenses. So that's money, of course, that they can reinvest in their facility or use for other things as well. So we continue to work with Suncoast Workforce on a regular basis and really appreciate the great collaboration we have with them.
Sharon, it is a great partnership, and you know, so much of what we do wouldn't be possible without the work of Suncoast Workforce. And every company, like you said, almost the first thing that they want to talk about when they're thinking about growing is workforce and the talent that we have here and how to deploy it for the benefit of their company. And what impresses me about the work of Suncoast Workforce in our community is the breadth of companies that they help. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you look at the work that they've done in the past year in Sarasota County, they've done work with some of our leading manufacturers like PGT and Tervis, but they've also helped some of our emerging companies, our high growth companies like Volt and like Lucid Global. And so we just appreciate that they're able to deploy their programs, their on-the-job training, their placement services to just a breadth of companies that we have a chance to work with. And it's appreciated by the companies, and it's appreciated by our economic development team.
Right. They're great partners of ours, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So another touch point for us certainly are our business relationships. Here's a little vignette from that.
Hi, my name is Jim Huff. I'm one of the owners of CEC Motor and Utility Services. We've been working with Suncoast Workforce for a little over a year now. We've been in business for a little over 2 years. So as a new business, I would tend to look for seasoned professionals that have been in the business for a number of years. But with the OJT program, I've been able to hire people right out of college, people with minimal experience, put them to work, train them on what I need them to know without a big financial burden or hit to my business. So all in all, Suncoast Workforce has been a huge help in me getting this business off the ground, and I just wanted to thank you. So thank you very much.
And then we heard Ricardo, who went to work for that business.
Hi, my name is Ricardo Vilas, and I was working at a church, and it was a very rewarding job, but I had recently just gotten married, and we have a baby on the way, so I was looking for an opportunity to advance my career. So I went to Suncoast Workforce, and they hooked me up with a job with CEC Motor and Utility Services doing outside sales. And I had very little experience in sales, but through the OJT program, CEC hired me on, and just within the first 6 weeks, I've already landed 3 major accounts that have given my company hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit. So I just wanted to thank Suncoast Workforce, and I don't only feel like they just invested in the company, but they also invested in me.
Now I wanted to share with you 2 stories from brand ambassadors within the 4 walls of Suncoast Workforce. These are the kind of people that you wish you had 100 of, that we could clone. On my flight in from Denver the other day, I flew Southwest, and my flight attendant had a big button on his apron that said, "I love my job." And they do. They truly love working for Southwest, and it shows as they take care of their clients. I want to introduce you to one of Suncoast's Workforce team members, Eula. I'll let you hear her story.
I work with job seekers, and I try to help them understand a good process that they may want to use as they're determining what career path they're going to pursue. We have many resources here at Suncoast Workforce to help them make those decisions. I also love working here because we change lives. We can recruit, train, and retain talented people for the Suncoast area, and we're just excited about it.
Isn't that awesome? Eula's here. Eula, will you stand up? Yes. In Eula's spare time, which we chatted that it was maybe 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., she's studying to be a lawyer after hours, so really awesome. So we want to introduce you to another team member at Suncoast Workforce, and this is Ben.
I'm the Senior Employment Resources Specialist at Suncoast Workforce. I've been here over 4 years. I'm the team lead for a team of about 25 people region-wide. What I do to help the mission, anybody who comes through our doors, is a potential recruit for Suncoast Workforce. They're here to learn about our services, and we're the first point of contact. We're the first impression for these people who always have tons of questions, so we really need to know about all the programs. We support every other program by offering assistance on everything from going to school to filing for unemployment to looking for work, just the basic steps, but it's really involved. That's part of what I like most about working here. You know, every day is different. It's not boring. Every day we get to come up with new information, learn new things, help new people. We're here to help people. I really like saying that. It's nice when people come in thinking they're going to be intimidated, and instead they feel like they've really been treated well and that we're on their side.
Thank you, Ben. And Ben is here. Can we give him a round of applause? Ben was also first in our state to be honored with the Leadership Award for the State Workforce Conference. So we're really proud of both of them. They're mission-driven, and you can't hire them away. So they're Suncoast Workforce folks. I want to just set up this. As we talked about the two-sided desks with Apple, here's a great example from Jeff Maltzby about a situation that Suncoast really helped with. In April of this year, the Sarasota County Board of Commissioners requested that a formal initiative be brought back to them for consideration within 6 months. The request was made in response to an inquiry by a local group. The group was hopeful of getting local citizens that were disproportionately impacted by the economic downturn, employed by contractors who were awarded county contracts. As a best practice, county staff reviewed a similar program used by the city of Sarasota. Partners in that program included Suncoast Workforce. A meeting was called, and South Coast Workforce was invited. This is what happened. From the very beginning, Suncoast Workforce was very engaged and participated in every element of the creation of the final resolution. In particular, Michael Smart's contribution was invaluable, says Jeff. Michael provided insight and knowledge from his prior experience that made the process much smoother than it otherwise would have been. Thanks in no small part to the efforts of the Suncoast Workforce and others, the board unanimously approved the resolution. So we were just thrilled with that. Again, people coming together, partners, brand ambassadors, working together, collaborating. So thank you. We have one more brand story for you.
Suncoast Workforce has been a great collaborative partner for Career Edge. We really work with them on 3 fronts. One, when we're working with companies employers, we can fund different things from the things that Suncoast Workforce can fund. So going together, coming to the table with an employer and basically parceling out what we can do, what they can do, really allows us to cover all the bases and to really help that employer. And we did this most recently with their products, and that brought 250 jobs to the region. And we worked very closely with MTI and the EDC, and it was a really marvelous project. On another front, we also collaborate with Suncoast on our Bridges to Careers, which is a job readiness program. And we, rather than duplicating, we come together, we use services from Suncoast, we leverage a lot of the things that they already have in place, and then we bring the special things that we do under Bridges, which is some of the soft skills, which Suncoast doesn't have the funding for. So again, by working together, we're able to better serve the job seeker. And then on a third front, we came together on a community-wide plan, which is to help close the skills gap in the region. We had identified that there was some particular gaps in precision machining. So coming together with the Chamber, EDC, Suncoast Workforce, we were able to put together a plan that effectively created a program, funded the equipment, and we now have a precision machining program in Sarasota that will actually feed a lot of the new workforce going into manufacturing. So in those areas, when we work together, when we really leverage each other's resources, we can make very good things happen for the community. In a nutshell, when we collaborate, the community wins.
Excellent. Another great verb, collaborate. So you've heard some stories about our touch points told through our ambassadors, both internal and external ambassadors. Before I wrap up this, I can't even continue this without talking about a very important brand ambassador for Suncoast Workforce. Please help me welcome and thank our CEO and servant leader, Mary Helen Kress. Could you come forward? Dale, would you come forward, please? Thank you. You are the Queen brand ambassador.
The Queen?
Yes.
My goodness.
Yes. Well.
And this is my king?
Well, we're fortunate. We really couldn't have a better brand ambassador than Mary Helen, and many of you know, have known her for many years. I think there's several characteristics that make her such a marvelous ambassador for us. One is that her visionary leadership. I remember several years ago on the board, we were really struggling over the one-stops because it was mandated that we had to outsource it. Mary Helen kept saying, you know, if we can control it, if we can run it ourselves, it'd free up a lot of money and we could really do a lot of things we can't do right now. So she worked with Mike Bennett and they turned it around. We were able to run the one-stops, and frankly, that was a huge turning point for Suncoast Workforce. Mary Helen was able to put together kind of a world-class leadership team, and frankly, at this point, the workforce has never been stronger or better run than it is today. Another thing about Mary Helen, obviously, is she's well respected because of her demeanor and the kind of leadership she provides. She's respected and loved by her staff, by the board, by the community, and so she really is a tremendous ambassador. Also, in the whole thing that, you know, one of the things about leadership, you measure a person, a leader, is kind of how you treat those who have the least amount of power. You know, Mary Helen has this incredible ability to treat everybody with respect. It doesn't make any difference whether it's the person that runs the mailroom or a CEO of the largest corporation, that she reaches out and genuinely cares for everybody. And the final characteristic of any good leader, and I wondered about this when I first met Mary Helen because she was so kind and gracious, could she ever make the tough decisions? Well, over the years, I've seen her have to make several of them. The kind that keep you awake at night where you can't sleep because it tears at your insides. But she was able to do those things with style and grace, and because of that, our organization is stronger. So in light of all that, I said, we're so fortunate. We have the best brand ambassador we could possibly have. And with that, Mary Helen, I'd like to give you a small token of our appreciation. And as you can see, these flowers are just a brief symbol or a small symbol of our love for you. Thank you.
Thank you, boss. You know, the thing about working with the board, and it is the board's business, I have to remind the staff of that off and on, because sometimes, you know, I tend to think it's my business, Ted thinks it's his business, you know, Josh thinks it's his business, Guy down here who sang the Star Spangled Banner for us so absolutely thinks it's his business, but it's really the board's business. And they're the ones that help us make all the decisions and set policy for us and help us as we stumble. Sometimes they come forward to help us make decisions. Adam is our great finance committee chair. I can't comment enough about all the other board members that we have. And Bob Beck was our incoming chair 3-4 years ago, and unfortunately, he could not make his installation because he was having back surgery in Mayo Clinic. But when I think about all the board members and the people that work with us, I couldn't have done anything without the support that I've had. And I've had great support. We've had great board members all through my years. I've been the CEO for 20 years. I've been with the board 5 more years than that, 25. And they've been wonderful years. You know, you can't stay in a job that long unless you really love what you're doing. And again, this is my boss. Adam is my boss also. But thank you all so very, very much. I thought this was for Andrea. Because I said, shouldn't we get roses or something for Andrea, you know? And then we started thinking, well, she's got to travel, so anyway, Andrea, thank you too. And most of all, I have to thank my staff. Without all the wonderful staff that I have, in fact, when the employer mentioned OJT, I love OJT. In fact, it took me quite some time to really put staff in place that would really tackle on-the-job training contracts, because it takes some work to do that. But now we have a great on-the-job training program. And is Anthony here? Where's Anthony? And Josh? Anthony does a great job with on-the-job training. And of course, Josh, back in the back there, is the director of our business services team. But once we started, and Jennifer Stevie, actually, who is no longer with us, but with that great team of employer that just came here. She's working with them as their training coordinator. But Jennifer actually, I think, designed and developed a lot of the OJT, and now the team goes out every day, and they love it just like I do. So anyway, I ramble on too much, but thank you all very much. I appreciate the flowers, and appreciate your all being here. I'm going to take the mic with me.
Just a few more things before we wrap up. So we've given you a little chapter, just a short story about Suncoast. As you can even hear from Mary Helen, we could have had lots of our brand ambassadors tell their story, so it was hard to just pick 2. We at Suncoast Workforce love what we do. We love being a purpose-driven brand. We love connecting internally so we can have a stronger story externally. We value all the ways we connect with our customers through our touch points. We most especially value our brand ambassadors internally and externally. As some of you know, depending on your history, you may remember that we started as Jobs Etc., also Suncoast Workforce Board together, and then that evolved into the Suncoast Workforce logo as you know now. But for those of you here, you probably know that some of that has gone away and is going away, and the sneak peek preview that you get to see today is the new rollout of the corporate-wide, statewide brand, CareerSource Florida, but we will look like this, CareerSource Suncoast. This is happening in 2014. Our story continues to be told. We feel like we have a really bright future, and we're excited that you're part of it. As Scott Bedbury said, our story continues. We continue to evolve and keep adding new chapters. As we wrap up and you think about some of the branding touch points and ambassadors and all the different things we talked about today, don't let this be a talk where you just listen to it. Do what Nike has said and just do some of these things. This is great branding advice from one of the best brands in the world. It isn't easy, like the Staples button, and it isn't something you just check off your list. It's hard work, but as Bezos says, a brand for a company is like a reputation for a person. You earn reputation by trying to do the hard things well. And so this year, or post-beach party, why don't you think about rolling up your sleeves, doing a little bit of brand homework to make all of this come together. Think about for your organization, who's your beach ball team? Who's your group genius, your brain trust? Take a look at your own brand audit. Give yourself a grade. Dare to dream. What are your verbs? What if you could only have one verb that directed all of your activities? What verb would that be? What kind of customer listening strategy will be adventurous for you? Pay attention to what your story is. And then how will you leverage your story with your ambassadors so they can tell it in the marketplace for you? And then take a look at your touch points. Prioritize them. Make sure they are all synced up and telling the same story. Again, as we wrap up this afternoon, we so appreciate our partners. We appreciate your time. We know it's quite precious. Thank you so much. Thank you. Any questions on branding, on Suncoast Workforce, on any of the things we chatted about over lunch today?
Hello. What have been your best strategies in overcoming a bad brand or a reputation or a staleness that maybe is not true, but once it's ingrained, it's hard to get people to move on to what the new brand is?
As I said, it's not easy work, but it's work that has to be purposeful. So what is the new brand story? Does everyone in your organization understand the need for a new story, why we're moving from point A to point B? So really making sure everyone understands why you've changed internally so that when they start telling the story externally, everybody's singing from the same playbook. So many times we get bits and pieces of stories and there hasn't been a cohesive strategy for the new story. And then getting partners to help tell your story. Well, that was then, but they've really changed, and let me tell you why. You've got to gain all of that reputation back, one experience, one customer at a time. It isn't easy work. It isn't slapping a new logo on, but it's really kind of an organic, inside-out process that you do what you say you're going to do. You get people who have had positive experiences sharing those, and you get those stories out. It's a process. There was a question? Yes.
I work with a number of nonprofits in the community, and I was wondering, with all this being said, how does a nonprofit organization compare differently than a, say, business client?
Excellent conversation, excellent question. Probably half of my clients are nonprofits. I've worked with churches and publishing houses and Christian companies like Compassion International, and so much of the branding practices are similar. They are promoting something different. In the case of Compassion, they're promoting child advocacy and trying to get sponsors, where a business might be trying to get customers. But the storytelling, I think Compassion International, if you're not familiar, just go on their website. They are brilliant at telling stories that pull you into these young lives that we could be helping. So, and their touch points, in sponsoring children, we get letters back and forth, and there's so many different ways they really engage sponsors. So while the mission may be different or the product may be a mission, the disciplines of branding, telling stories, paying attention to touch points, using your brand ambassadors, actually quite similar. Yeah, thank you. Another question? Yes. That's a really great question because just like branding isn't a logo, branding isn't one person's job. And we should give a hand to Sally, who coordinated this gorgeous, wonderful event and themed it all up for us. So Sally may wear the title of branding and communications at Suncoast, but she'll be the first to tell you this was an event with all of her colleagues' help. And the idea of everyone internally working together for one holistic experience. Usually within a company, there is a champion of this kind of work. They may be in marketing. They may be one of your best customer care folks. And it's really getting that energy and getting a team together to say, hey, you know, you're printing napkins over here, and you're putting a billboard here, and you're doing an ad here, and you're planning an event here. What if we all got together and leveraged all of those touch points? And sometimes it's just having the courage to be the first person to bring people together to talk about all the various activities you're doing, and how could, instead of lots of mini poems, shall we say, you could put all of that together for a great novel. So many times we're just in our own little stripe doing our own thing. And if we can sync all that great energy, all of that good work together, that we would multiply the impact. Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you so much. Now, Adam, thank you.
Andrea, thank you for an informative and inspiring presentation. Please accept this token from us.
Thank you so much.
And we want to wish you safe travels, and thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge with the room here today. And we certainly want to continue our partnerships with you. We want to consider our other ways that we can collaborate together. We want you to be brand ambassadors of the Suncoast workforce, and we want to be your brand ambassadors. So reach out to us. Let us work with you. This is a fabulous organization, and together we can make this community much, much stronger. So, Andrea, thank you.
Thank you. I can pull the names for the book. Can I do that real quick?
Please. Okay. And we certainly couldn't wrap this meeting up without recognizing our wonderful staff at the Suncoast Workforce. If you all could please stand and be recognized. And I'd like to offer a special thanks to Sally Hill for coordinating this event. It gets better every year, so Sally, thank you for your tireless efforts. And again, I'd like to thank our partners, Biz 941, the Bradenton Area Economic Development Corporation, Career Edge, the Economic Development Corporation of Sarasota County, the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce, the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, the Northport Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Northport Area Economic Development Corporation. We truly appreciate their support. So we want to thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this meeting to be enlightening, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.